Hello and welcome to the Pearly Eye Review. I'm PJ, and tonight I will be reviewing a spooky movie by the name of All Hallows' Eve. This movie came out in 2013, directed by Damien Leone, and it's a horror anthology film. I'm a huge fan of horror anthology films such as Creepshow 1 and 2, Tales from the Crypt, and The Cat's Eye. So as of late, I wanted to find a horror anthology film that I had never seen before, and All Hallows' Eve happens to be that film. I'd never seen this film until this year, and I was surprised by this film. The movie starts off with this babysitter. She's babysitting two kids, a boy and a girl. And the boy informs his babysitter that some strange person left a VHS tape in his trick-or-treat bag. And so the babysitter is really weirded out that some grown person would put a VHS tape in a child's bag, and not, and just the thought of not knowing what's on this tape. It could be anything. So the babysitter wrestles with whether or not they should watch the film, because the boy and the girl beg their babysitter, like, let's watch the VHS tape. Let's see what's on it. Let's see what's on it. And they keep begging her, and she's like, listen, I don't want to get in trouble with your parents. We don't know what's on this film. So she gives in and pops the VHS tape in. And when that happens, whatever's on the tape takes over on the screen. We no longer see the babysitter and kids. We start watching the tape just like them. And that starts the first anthology story. Now how I'm going to explain these stories, I'm not going to go into too much detail, because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it for you guys. So I'm going to try and sort of describe certain things without giving too much away.
It's Halloween. It's with a woman at a train station. She goes to a quiet, private room area within the train station to read her book. Next, a couple dressed in costume ask her questions, and it's very obvious that they're tipsy, they're drunk, and the woman doesn't want to be bothered. She just wants to read her book and eventually get on the train, get to her destination. The couple leaves. She goes back to reading her book. You hear the door open again. Then she looks up. She sees a strange man dressed in a clown suit. He wants to get her attention. He does a series of silly things like making faces and tries to give her flowers. Then she blacks out. She wakes up below the train station. It's a tunnel, and she discovers that she is accompanied by two other girls who are chained up by their neck, wrist, and feet, and they tell her that there's something in that dark tunnel across from them. They don't know what it is, and one by one they're being pulled down this tunnel, and then they never come back. So at this point, you don't see the clown again, and then there are just these monsters doing this bizarre demonic religious ritual, torturing people, and then the tape goes off.
It starts off very basic and just goes down the rabbit hole. I don't get it. The best way to describe the first story is, it's just weird. It started out potentially scary, but then it just went crazy, and it was like, okay, please get to the next story. It wasn't well executed. It was disturbing. Yeah. So The first story is about a girl being kidnapped from the train station and being tortured. So the tape goes off, that first story, the babysitter, it goes back to the babysitter and the kids. And she is like disturbed at what she saw, and she just makes the decision to send the kids to bed and just like, I gotta get rid of this tape. And the boy's, angry that the babysitter took away his tape. He's like, it's my tape, it was given to me. And she's like, listen, I don't want to get in trouble with your parents. We're not watching that tape again. Go to bed. She sends them to bed, she tucks them in together. She talks to a girlfriend on the phone and says, oh, you want to meet up and have drinks or whatever? And yeah, I have a few more hours, she tells her, until she's off. And she's just bored. So she decides, okay, let me see what else is on this tape. And I'm thinking to myself, don't do that. Don't watch that tape. She pops it in, then the second story takes over.
It starts with a woman in a house by herself talking to her friend on the phone, and talks about how her husband is away on business. He's an artist and he paints. She's unpacking. She's trying to set up and unpack because there are boxes everywhere to set up their new home. Suddenly the lights go out. You hear a big loud crash. It's somewhere near her backyard. Long story short, these creatures come into her home and then start attacking her.
So this story, it starts off interesting again, and then it just becomes like, okay, get to the next story. It's I think what kind of takes away from the film is that the costumes aren't that great of the creatures in this film. I mean, I'll say what I think the problem is about this film and what they should have done to correct it. But I'll get to that till the end of my review. She becomes the standard girl in a scary movie doing everything wrong, and she just, the horror movie girl doing all the scary movie tropes in a film. And it just gets to a point where it's like, come on, move on. Let's go. Move on. And in this second story, the clown does show up, but it's in such a predictable way. I'm like, I bet you that's where the clown is. What I felt from it was, I think it started out creepy, but then it became kind of cheesy, because of the bad costumes. But I think I'll say it after I'm done. But anyways, that story goes off, and the babysitter, she just becomes like engrossed in this VHS tape because she's wondering, where are all these stories coming from? What is this? And so she soldiers on through and watches the last and third movie on this VHS tape. And I have to say, by far, the third film, why not? Save the best for last. Is very effective.
There's this girl who's driving. She realizes she's running out of gas. She decides to stop at a gas station to fill up. She sees the clown from the first two films, and the clown is being yelled at by the gas attendant. So the gas attendant shoos the clown away. The girl asks the gas attendant, what was that all about? And the gas attendant just tells her, nah, don't worry about him. He's gone now. He was just doing inappropriate things on the side of the building and peeing on the walls and doing silly things. So he asks her, how can he help her? She tells him that she's trying to get back on the interstate to get back to New York. So he offers to give her directions on how to get there. But there's a noise that comes from the storage building right next to the gas pumps. So he says to the girl, I gotta go check that out, whatever that noise is. So the girl's just standing there for a while. She's just wondering, where's this gas attendant? He said he was gonna help me. Long story short, gas attendant doesn't appear again. the clown starts to pursue her. So she gets in her car, drives off in a panic. And every mile she drives forward, the clown is on the side of the road trying to hitchhike and get her attention. But it's so freaky, like you think, how can that be? You know, remember, she left him at the gas station. How come every time she drives forward, he's there?
What it reminded me of is that, you know, that third movie from Creepshow 2 with the guy saying thanks for the ride, the hit and run story. That's what it reminded me of. With this clown, everywhere she went, he kept coming. It creeped me out. I'm like, okay, this is really scary. This is scary. Everywhere she went, she leaves her car. There he is, chasing after her. And it's just very creepy. So, and I don't want to give too much away with that third story. I have to say, by far, that is the most effective story on this VHS tape. So the tape goes off, and the babysitter's like, she is freaking out. She is really, really creeped out. And then, since she watched all those 3 films, what's cool about this is, I think what really brought it home for me, even though the first two stories weren't that strong, I like that the third one was the strongest in that, for some reason, the supernatural forces of this clown starts affecting what's happening in real life with the babysitter and the kids, and things start happening in the house. That's what started freaking me out. I'm like, oh my god. And the ending of this is just, oh man, it's shocking. And that's what really brought it home for me. I think I'll say this. The problem with the first 2 stories is, I think the clown should have been more consistent in those stories. Just make him the main villain or antagonist. Because it's just not interesting with the clown and friends. You know, the monsters with bad costumes. It's just not scary like that. It's cheesy. Because I found myself wanting more of the clown in those first 2 stories, whereas the third film, it was all about him. He was really in it, and he was because he's the scariest thing. And but I do like how the things started to spill over with the babysitter and all that. And that's what it just really floored me. I think nowadays I've become so immune to scary movies. They're almost too predictable. But I like movies like All Hallows'Eve that really shook things up for me. And I think this is a must-see. If you've never seen Hallows'Eve, like I've never seen it until just recently, I was pleasantly surprised, and it helped me remember how I love horror anthology films. I do appreciate that this is a horror anthology film that's mixed with found footage, because it's a VHS tape, and you know they're watching the footage, and it's also mixed with horror anthology. So it's like a sandwich of both genres of horror films. So that's my review. Have you ever seen All Hallows'Eve, and what did you think? Did it shock you towards the end? Was it really creeping you out, like, towards the end, or did you like the first 2 stories? So thanks, like and subscribe.